Okay, shout out to millennials. Points if you were born in Australia and know exactly what Play School is. But does this remind you guys of the arch window on Play School? Or maybe you can see some tiny little beach umbrellas in those inserts. I don't know. It reminded me of both, and I still bought it on Facebook Marketplace for $50. And if you're a beginner and you are wanting to learn exactly how to paint furniture, then this is the video for you. I'm going to show you step by step exactly how I do it. This set was made out of a combination of things. There was a timber veneer up top, there was some MDF in there, and there was some particle board. So this one is a perfect candidate to be painted. You don't necessarily want to be doing a raw timber finish on a piece like this because MDF is basically cardboard and you can't sand it down, paint wash it, stain it, do things like that. But you can absolutely paint it. Here you can see me removing all of the handles and I'm giving the piece a thorough clean down. This is one of those steps that you cannot skip when you are flipping furniture. You have to start with a clean canvas. These little handles were cute, but I did want to change them up for the piece, but I did put them in my little handle bank that I have so that I could use them in the future. You can use lots of things to clean your furniture. Here I'm using vinegar and water, but I also like to use crud cutter. Vinegar and water is a fantastic all-round cleaner, whereas crud cutter is a degreaser. So if you've got a piece that is especially grimy, grubby, then crud cutter is a fantastic route to go down. If not, vinegar and water is sufficient to clean a piece. While I was cleaning everything down, I decided to get the doors off so that I could paint the inside of the piece as well. But these were snap lock hinges, and whilst I could get the actual doors off, I couldn't actually get the hinge out of the door. And if you're a cabinet maker and you have seen this, then please chime in. I would love to know how to actually remove a hinge like this. This might seem a little bit back to front, but I like to drill my handle holes before I have painted a piece. And that's because sometimes when you drill holes, awry things can happen. You can get little chunks of timber flying off. And if you've done a fresh paint job and then you've drilled in a hole and a timber piece flies off, then you've got to come back. You've got to fill that space and then you've got to repaint it. To fill the existing handle holes and some minor scratches that I'd found on top of the piece, I mixed up some 2-part gap filler. So this one comes in a paste and you can see there that I'm adding the activator, which is the red tube. Together, they create a chemical reaction and it starts to set. How fast that sets is determined by how much of the red activator you put in. So if you want more work time, you've got a lot of things to fill in, then you want to be adding less of that activator tube into your mix. If you want things to set very fast, you've only got a couple of little holes to fix and you want to get going on that, then you can put a little bit more activator in. This next step is not essential. However, you can do it if you don't like to see any timber grain underneath your paintwork. I'm using wood filler, watered down. I'm painting it onto the surface, and that's so that it fills the grain. All timber has grain and you can see it underneath paintwork. It comes up as little dark lines. Some people love it. A lot of the time I leave it. It's not a big aesthetic thing for me, so I don't normally do this. However, you can do it if you want more of a seamless finish, and I did think that that would look nice on this particular piece of furniture. You do want to make sure though that you are going against the grain. So on this piece of furniture, the grain was going lengthways, so up and down. So I am going from left to right. I'm not going from the top to the bottom. This is obviously case by case. It could be different on your piece of furniture, but you just want to make sure that you're going across the grain, however that is lying on your piece of furniture. And that just ensures that the most product is getting into those little grain grooves as possible. My next step was scuff sanding, and for this I chose 120 grit sandpaper. This is a fantastic starting point for scuff sanding. You can use higher than this. You can go in with 240 grit sandpaper if you want, but the main idea is you're using a medium to high grit of sandpaper. And that's because all you're doing here is creating a little bit of micro texture so that your primer will adhere to the surface effectively. I used that same 120 grit on all the drawers and the doors and smoothed down where I had filled those existing handle holes. Because I couldn't remove these hinges, I just taped them off neatly so that no paint would get into the mechanism and went on to priming. I'm using Zinza water-based primer here because I'm going to be spraying the piece a darker color. Now, I made a video specifically about priming your piece because there are a couple of things that you need to know when you are setting out which primer to use in what application. I also created a guide through the link in my bio, which will teach you everything about painting furniture, especially priming. So check that one out if you're a total newbie. I'm all about time efficiency and saving on products, so you will not see me tape off drawers completely. I like to use one piece of tape and then use a barrier to stop any overspray from getting inside or on the sides of the drawers. Once that primer was completely dry, I went around with 600 grit sandpaper and gave everything a light sand. This will eliminate any texture from whatever you are applying with, be that a spray gun, a brush, or a roller, and it will eliminate anything that may have landed in the paintwork while it was drying. You do want to make sure that you remove all of the dust though before you go onto your next coat of paint. Now I actually went one step further with this piece, and between each of my paint coats, so not from my primer to paint, but between each of my paint coats, I actually sanded with 1200 grit sandpaper. While that final coat of paint was drying, I moved onto the shelves and I wanted to maintain a little bit of that timber. Even though this was a veneer in here, I lightly sanded them down with 240 grit sandpaper and then sealed them with hard wax. It was then time to install the new hardware, get those doors back on, and guys, this is a reminder of where we were and this is where we are now. The power of paint is incredible. This looks like a completely different piece of furniture. I absolutely love it. I think the tone is amazing. Those handles complement the piece perfectly, not just the shape, but the aged brass color of them as well. But as always, I would love to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments, is this one a nail or a fail?